All right, welcome back, Darren. This is kind of one of my favorite topics is sometimes influencers come in literally a minute, right time, right place, and sometimes they come in a lifetime. And you mentioned before, I think about former Soviet Union, Ukraine. My grandparents, and my mom and my aunt came from Kiev. They immigrated to Canada a long time ago, and my grandfather used to take me for walks in the park in Montreal when I was about five or six or something like that, and one day I asked him, because he met everybody and talked to everybody. We talked about that. That's where I got that gene from. And so one day I asked him, I called him Zeta. I said, Zeta, how do you know all these people? And he said, well, you see that person coming up here? One day I smiled at him and he looked up and smiled at me and he came over and we started talking and someone else saw us smiling and laughing and they came over too. And on and on and on. And as a 5-year-old, I'm thinking, life's going to be easy. I just need to smile. And that's what I got out of it. And and it's true. You can make a big impact on somebody just with a smile, psychologically and even physiologically. It happens. So we all have, and you'll have even more different influencers over time. But can you share maybe two or three people that have already been influential in your life?
Yeah, I think that the first person that comes to mind who was very influential on me was my grandmother. The grandmother actually that came from former Soviet Union. Odessa was the city that they were in.
Sure.
And I feel that the reason why she had been influential on me was I think she had taught me a lot of lessons about listening and about hearing. And she'd always sort of had these quips or this advice to provide me with as a kid. But I think the biggest thing that stuck with me today was when she told me, you know, um, you may not hear me right now, but I hope that you listen so that in the future, when she's not here, currently she's not here with me anymore. And then I'll remember, right? And I'll remember what she had taught me. And so in the moment, as long as I hear what she says, right, I think we're then, as long, sorry, yeah, I'm getting emotional. But I think
Cool.
as long as I'm here listening to what she says, then that's ultimately what matters, right? Because in the moment, sometimes when we receive advice, that's not necessarily when we are most well positioned to receive it or to act on it.
Right.
And I think that so much of what she had taught me is useful to me today and is so often referenced in a lot of decisions that I make. And I think back then as a kid, I didn't really have as much use for it, right? But because I heard her, because I listened, I think ultimately that's what got me to where I am today. And so
No,
I've
it's brilliant, and I'm glad you shared that because listening is we talk about skill sets. Listening is a major skill set that we need more of. So, yeah, your grandmother was brilliant, and in fact, grandmothers are the most trusted people in the world.
I can understand why.
So, can you share about one or two other people?
Yeah. I also had another friend that I encountered. We had done an internship together actually before Princeton. And then I ended up, I saw her on Admitted Students Day and I was like, oh my God, her name's Sarah. And I was like, Sarah, what are you doing here? And I think ultimately we were in similar circles, but I think our first 2 years of school, we didn't really have a chance to interact much. And one thing, though, that I think I always noticed about Sarah was her confidence and the way that she went about the world. And, perhaps she didn't have sort of every opportunity yet, right? Or perhaps she didn't sort of have every single thing on lock. But I think she always went about the world in an incredibly humble way, in an incredibly people centric way, and in a way that really exuded her the confidence and the belief that she had in herself. And I think that was always really powerful to me in terms of how she went about the world. And I really do feel, right, that relationships with people ebb and flow, right? And so sometimes you're meant to have people in your life a certain moment, and at other times that person is not meant to be in your life. And that makes room for other connections, right? And so I think recently over the past semester, as I sort of reframe what my career goals are, as I think more critically about my own habits and what do I want to accomplish, and as I tried to make the most of my final year in college, Sarah has become a really big part of my life. And I think it ultimately goes back to the type of person that she is and the fact that I want to surround myself with people that are so good to the world because they hopefully it will make me better to the world. And so it's a very long-winded way of saying that Sarah is just one of the best role models that I have in my life currently. And for that reason, um, we've gotten a lot closer recently. And so
Yeah,
she's a
that's
very
great.
influential person.
Go Sarah. I like her already.
Oh yeah.
Um, you don't have to, but is there another person you'd like to highlight?
Yeah. Um, this one, you know, I had the chance this summer to meet a friend, and he goes to the Northeastern. He's a rower. He's from New Zealand, actually. And I think it really goes back to listening again, as with the first role model with my grandmother,
Hmm.
because I think from the moment that we met, we were just really good friends. And the reason for that, I think, is because I never had someone listen to me. And then also from the way that he had listened to me, I think it encouraged me to sort of listen to him in a way that was similar, right? To reciprocate that. Um, I just never been listened to like that, I think, ever. And I think ultimately, right, when we would hang out or we would spend time together, we did a program this summer at the University of Cambridge. And so we were studying, going out to on little adventures all the time and all that stuff. And just a really great experience. But I think that ultimately he's still a really close friend to this day. Um, I think because of how genuine he is and how much he cares. And I think that for me has been really important, especially recently. Because as much as he cares, also he's very honest, right? And so if I do something or I say something, right, and he's like, "Are you sure about that?" or "What do you think about that?" I think he's just very critical in a way that's just really honest and raw that a lot of people, perhaps in my life, just haven't been, or rather, not from a place, of malice, but just it's just not how they are. And so I think ultimately Ned has just really taught me about new ways to be a friend, new ways to show up for people.
Hmm.
Uh, and in that way, I'm really grateful to have him in my life. So that's
No,
something.
that's great. One thing you learn over time is we're always influencing people. And a lot of times we don't even know we're influencing people. So the choice is, do you want to be positive or negative influence? And they may not recognize it right away. You may not recognize it right away. And you may never good recognize it together. Like teachers are prime examples of a lot of times they don't know, but they do make an impact. And if you come from that authentically, then it's healthy for everybody. So thank you for sharing those great influencers.
Thank you for asking about that, Mark.